Hello and welcome to the Happiest CEO podcast. I'm so excited to have Natalie Sain today with me and genuinely excited about listening to Natalie's experience and gifts that she brings to the world. She's an intuitive healer, shaman, channel, and spirit medium, and the founder of Guided by Natalie, where she supports people through deep emotional, energetic, and spiritual transformation. With a rare blend of traumatic-informed somatic therapy, yoga, Reiki, and many decades of experiences in energy medicine, plus an ancestral lineage in Hawaiian shamanism, Natalie brings an approach that both deeply grounds you as well as profoundly brings intuition into the session. So she works with clients all over the world, helping them find clarity, healing, and real soul alignment. So this will be a really, really powerful and honest conversation. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast to not miss any episodes. I'm so excited to have you here, Natalie. Welcome on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
When talking about intuitive healing, channeling, and so on, I know that not everyone has had many experiences with it. My experience only goes really consciously back about 10, 12 years. And since then, I've experienced many things that to me, undoubtedly something that cannot scientifically explained. This type of magic, if we want to call it, is very real and alive. And just because it's ancient doesn't mean that it's a myth at all. And I'm so excited to dive into that with you because I do know that you actually have a clinic medical background as well. And I believe that was sort of a bit of the trigger for you to actually dig deeper, because what I found the scientific method often comes up with when there's something unexplainable is just, well, that's just unusual and we can't tie a rule around it. So it's probably just an exception to the rule or mistake in the data. Would you agree that that's often the observation and a not so satisfying answer that one gets?
Yeah, I do. I agree with that. I feel like there's a time where consciousness can catch up or what people are ready to take in as being true. And from a spiritual lens, sometimes science can catch up with that. So at the moment, I'm working with a quantum physicist to help to explain to other quantum physicists what I see when it comes to spirituality and frequencies, because I genuinely love the marriage and the relationship between clinical and science and spiritual, because it helps people who come from the different camps to feel safe and to feel familiar with the information that comes through. But certainly I did struggle at the beginning coming from a very science-orientated background with what I affectionately call the woo, trying to trust and discern what I was picking up that, couldn't be quantified by science at that time.
Yeah. And I guess that's so true at that time, right? Because I think when talking about quantum physics, I do remember talking actually to Maori, a Matua teacher, elder in New Zealand about quantum physics. And we were talking about that sometimes, experiments that are on the quantum level, like fusion energy works, and sometimes they don't. And I said, well, how about we talk about the people in the room? If you only have skeptics, it seems to not to work. If you do have people that believe, it seems to work. How do you reconcile that? Like that's an external factor. That's not the atoms doing anything differently. They're in the same experiment. He was explaining to me that rituals are a bit like that as well. Like you need that belief in it to lift the veil, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I feel like they can still deeply have an impact, but it might be at more of that subtle level, less of that like conscious level that happens to people as well. If you've got people who believe, they're giving that invitation for change, whereas people who are more self-protective and skepticism, which I honor skepticism as well. I think that we can have healthy skepticism.
Yeah.
I think it can still massively help, but we might not be aware of how that's helping because of our own probably ego blocks to it.
Yeah. So do we even, like when we talk about healing, and I'm sure we will talk about sort of like the more nuts and bolts, but are you saying what you just said is basically you don't have to be a believer for certain things to work?
No, I actually feel like that's my truth and that comes from experience. So
Yeah.
I've often sit with our clients in session, whether that's in person or online, and they'll come to me and they'll have their hands across their chest and they'll be like, look, I'm here. But being honest with you, I don't even know if I believe in this stuff.
Yeah.
And it may be because, a wife has come to see me and then she's been like saying to her husband, hey, I went to see this woman and I really want you to see her. So the husband's kind of feeling like, all right, I've got to go to appease my wife.
Right. Yeah.
And again, like I understand people coming like that. Like people do not have to come full open, because this work can feel unfamiliar and it can feel scary. And unfortunately, like any industry, because it is an industry, there
Yeah.
have been people who have abused power
Yeah.
within this,
Right.
under this umbrella. However, the reason why I feel like it's true that people can still get so much out of this work without the original beliefs is because time after time, when I've had someone sitting with me who sits in that camp of, closed, self-protective
Yeah.
skepticism,
Yeah.
it completely shifts. Like it completely shifts because I'm able to get information from their team, from themselves, without them telling me. When I say from themselves, I'm able to read the energy of the mind and the soul. So I can give them really concrete evidence, which helps them to feel safe, which helps them to feel curious, like, actually, there might be something in this.
Yeah.
So, like, seeing skeptics sometimes can be harder for me because I need to lovingly work through their protection
Yeah.
without force, like, very sensitive to their safety.
Yeah.
But, it makes me smile so much when that same husband who was here going, yeah, I'm not so sure, when he says to me at the end, hey, look, when can I come back? And that's when it kind of causes a little flutter in my heart when I'm like, dopamine rush, gotcha. You're like, yes, you now become a believer because we can make it so evidential from personal experience as well. So, yeah, I do feel like a lot of change can happen even in the non-believers who usually then become believers.
Yeah. That does make a lot of sense. So when you talk to quantum physicists, how do you explain what's happening there? Because I guess you don't use any instruments, meaning actually like you don't measure anything, you don't do diagnostics, right? But then you use probably, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you use your own method to get to
Yes.
a point where you can help others. What exactly is that?
Well, you touched on something for me there because I would love to be tested. I think I would just, love that because it can be quantifiable then. But I'm working with a gentleman at the moment and he speaks in the language of quantum physics, which is so academic that it's beyond my mind. But he is asking me because, bless him, he lost his wife to cancer some years ago and he came to see me. He's someone who sat in the skeptic and he came to see me because he wanted to know if I could make contact with his wife on the other side. And it's turned into a beautiful relationship where his wife comes through from the heavens and she actually is able to teach us about heaven. And within heaven, there's different frequencies of energy and different frequencies of light. And every single frequency has its own speciality. So think about it, if you will, like a tower, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on every level of the tower, which is the heavens, if you choose to believe this, of course, this is my truth. I'm not trying to push a truth onto anybody. We can together and literally with his beautiful wife who's passed, we'll talk about the frequencies, what they do. And then he's able to do all the research that he does to try to quantify that as much as he can to make it digestible to people who are in his field. So he uses his language to reframe what I'm saying in a way that is familiar to them. And it's literally such a humble experience because over all the years that I've been doing what I do, I've never really asked, which is a strange thing on reflection, what heaven is like. It's almost like I was anesthetized to ask. And now with this beautiful woman who comes through to speak to her husband and myself, what she shares with us is really profound. And it's impossible to actually grasp and to know everything because also I don't think it's our place, but I don't think we can from a rational mind perspective as well, because what we find out there is so different to what we can possibly get our minds around on being on Earth side. So I'm loving these conversations with him because I know that he'll do something, like he's working in that field to change other people's perspectives, and he comes from a very respected position. But together, I hope that we're creating something which can be meaningful to people.
Beautiful, beautiful. Look, what I'm so excited about in these times is that knowledge is just, and experiences are just available, like through online platforms of all sorts, and I found that prior to that time, there was always like, I guess this is so, or someone like yourself, you have seen the evidence, you've seen all the miracles that, hey, this is just part of life. But I believe our consciousness, our collective consciousness of the people alive, and I guess, of the culture the many different cultures that we are, is really lifting to accept, oh, there is something after death. To me, there was a massive things ever since I've been 3, I think. Like, I really disagreed with the whole notion of like, you will just not be there and there will be nothing there.
Yeah.
And then talking to someone like you, who is of course really comfortable with not just the concept, but the reality that, a soul doesn't die and consciousness just doesn't die. And yeah, it just fills me with a lot of excitement to just see like, great, like we will understand that this is a snapshot or this is part of existence, being in the physical, but it's not the end of it all. And there's so much more when you talk about the different frequencies and, levels.
Yeah, yeah. In my experience, there's so much more. I've never experienced anything which is reflected like a hell, as some religious
Gotcha.
texts may
Yeah.
say. I've only experienced, I feel like birth and death are actually the same energy. Like they're so beautiful, so loving, so kind, so grace-filled, so compassionate. Like it
Yeah.
really is without any fear. That's been massive for me on my journey, as with anyone who can really feel into and trust that death is not scary, because having a fear of death must be very, very hard for people. And also knowing that there is so much life for us on the other side. And there really is. It's like awesome to know. And that's for like humans, that's for our beloved pets, that's for consciousness, all beings of spirit, we just continue to live on, just not
Yes.
in this earthly body, obviously.
Yes. When thinking about your experience and your perception, it seems that you've had for a long time the ability to see things that other people just not see or somehow just can't see. And, I do throw in there, you have a Maori background coming from New Zealand. That's in my mind and in my experience, a very spiritual culture and way of living and being on a land that is so, I don't know. The vibe there is certainly alive. Like there is more of a personification almost like of it all. Like you look at a big kauri tree, one of the biggest trees in the world there, and you just sense more than this is just a tree. And I guess that to me sort of indicates that, if you are on a place like on an island like that, you do have more access to it. But how did this start? Like, has this always been for you that you would see certain things that other people don't?
Honestly, I suspect so. Like it's always been that way. However, I was really afraid, very, very afraid of seeing and interpreting the world the way I did when I was younger. So I tried to shut it down, hugely tried to shut it down. And that's one of the reasons why I went towards clinical, towards rational, because it felt like something could be tangible with that. I come from a background where so many of the women down my mother's side of the family have been both incarcerated and institutionalized for mental health, which has included things like borderline, schizophrenia, bipolar. And I remember when I was younger, one of my uncles sat down with me, and I must have been about 12, and he made me promise that I wouldn't go crazy. It was quite an insensitive conversation, that I wouldn't be like the other women in my family who had gone into mental health. When I started to see and interpret things, I actually went to fear, because I
Mm-hmm.
thought that I was following a line which was,
That's
put
safe.
into that institutionalized camp. And so
Yeah.
that's another reason why I just tried to push against it. But when I was 17, and this is a strange thing, my mum actually was quite worried about me because I was acting strangely, because I started to see things again, but didn't have the courage to tell anyone because of the fear that I was losing my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she actually took me to see a Catholic psychic, and those things don't usually go together, Catholic psychic. So she walked me into this beautiful Irish elderly lady's house and her reading room, and there's crucifixes on every part of the wall. And I didn't say anything to her about what I was seeing or my story. And she just sat with me and she said, "You can see and you can hear, and you're afraid you're going crazy, but you're
Wow.
not." And at that point, I just burst out crying, because it felt so validating to be witnessed,
Yeah.
especially having not given a story. And what she did was she actually called my mum in, and she sat my mum down and she said, your daughter's having these experiences. So I know you're worried about her. It's not mental health. And what this lady actually did is she goes, I can turn you off. So she did something to my energy and she shut me down. So I was very 3D.
Yeah.
I was no longer seeing energy, seeing angels, seeing people's consciousness. I was very, very normal. And I spent years in that camp, but also feeling like there's a part of my relationship with myself that I was missing.
Yeah.
But anything to do with spirituality scared me. I would eye roll. I was incredibly cynical and skeptical. I was like, I would, poo-poo it until many, many years later. My husband, who is English, we were living in Perth in Australia, and his best friend had passed away in the UK. And we were sitting in our lounge room in Perth, and my husband was understandably like so upset. And his best friend, who had just passed, ended up coming into the room, sitting on the couch with us. And I ended up holding a conversation between my husband and his friend who had passed. And
So
that
you saw
wasn't
him, your husband didn't, right?
Yeah, he didn't see. Yeah, So, but I wasn't deliberately trying to open up. What I feel, what did it was because I have such great love for my husband and his
Yeah.
suffering, and
Yeah.
all of this work comes through love. Like all of this frequency, channeling, healing, intuitive work is through the heart. So my heart was open to my husband. His friend literally walked into the room. And at first I wasn't really sure how to like bring up the conversation. So his friend was saying to me, remind Paul, my husband, about when we went to the Glastonbury Music Festival. And he was being cheeky. He was like, and we were with these girls. And I'm like, I do not want to talk to my husband about relationships that he had at a festival. But it was a way to quantify that I was actually speaking to his friend, because my
Confirmation.
husband wouldn't
Yeah.
have told me, that he was with these other women at this music
Yeah.
festival before we got together. And so after that conversation, my husband, who works in a very corporate space, so very rational minded, he said to me, hey, Nat, maybe this gift that you got could help people to heal. And at that point, I was still an adamant no, because I was holding so much fear. But something must have shifted within my being, because I started to be curious, but I would literally take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But then it just started to grow and grow with my curiosity. So, and I started to reopen. So when that beautiful lady, that Catholic psychic, little Irish darling, turned me off, I started to turn back on. And just for a moment, backtracking back to that story, after we left that lady's house, who told my mum about my gifts and turned me off, we could never find her again. There was no card. We couldn't find her address. We couldn't find her telephone number. To this day, I still wonder if she was an angel from God coming through for that one session to help me, because if it hadn't been for her insight into what I was experiencing, I think that my self-belief that I was going crazy may have actually become that, So I have so much reverence for when I get to meet her on the other side, because if she was really living, she'd be past now. But I just want to thank her from my heart, because in a way I feel like she saved my life. So coming back, so I started to open up, but very tentatively. And then what would happen is I was still working in a clinical space, but I would offer friends like who I saw were suffering, because I can see energy and consciousness very clearly as well. Hey, like I can do this weird thing. So I protected it through humor. I was like, oh, I'm so weird. I can do this weird thing, but hey, maybe I can help you.
Yeah.
And it was literally just loving friends and family. And it was just conversations, bringing them messages. Then what would happen is a friend would tell a friend, who would tell a friend, who would tell a friend. So I ended up having what is now a business without it ever wanting to be a business. It was never like, I'm going to do this thing. It just happened organically. And then I got so saturated with requests that I was looking at, do I stay in clinical or do I actually pivot to this like spiritual, which I'm getting so much evidence for, and, being able to quantify how much this is helping. And then that's the pivot that I took. So that has now landed me here in what I do. I still really honor clinical. I still believe that anybody who does what I did should be full trauma informed, because we need to be so sensitive and loving to our clients. So it's not just about, knowing what's coming through from spirit, but honoring their human experience, honoring where they're at, like within themselves as well. So yeah, that is in a nutshell how I got to where I am today.
Lovely. Thank you. That opened up so many more questions.
Oh gosh.
Which is great. Quick share. I certainly grew up Lutheran, not particularly indoctrinated, but was I was around at school. My dad was part of the church, a deacon that is. And when I heard that the Catholics had an exorcist, I think you pronounce it,
Yeah.
it gave me actually hope more than anything. It's like, hold on, you also acknowledge that there's more to the eye than just 3D, just the human experience as most people think. I guess it's
Yes.
the most. So, when you talk about, the 3D experience and beyond, the beyond comes in many different colors, shapes, forms, and, ways of receiving this, correct?
Yes, it does. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's almost what I like. I mean, that sounds. I don't know how to say this non-judgmental, but
No, go for it. Yeah, just
what
say
to
it, and
me?
I won't be judged. I won't feel judged. Don't worry.
Okay, I don't think it's actually not judging necessarily you, but when we talk about the sort of like Newtonian rational way of looking at the world, I do feel it's sad, but in the wider picture, an experience like that, and then getting switched on, as you say, to then experience more and seeing more, see spirits, hear voices, whatever it is. It could be also really like coming home. So sometimes the contrast can be extremely beautiful, of course, but I do often feel that like my wish would be, I wish, the world would just know about that, because there would be more hope. Like, if I think about my culture, which is the German culture, people have the number of kids they have is really low because the optimism is not particularly high, because they see the world as like a terrible, dangerous place. And it comes also partly of like, I don't want to put anyone in here and then just suffering through a life and then they're gone again.
Yeah.
Versus, like sometimes, these experiences actually really, give you a really beautiful experience because of the contrast, right?
Absolutely. Like it is very privileged for any of us to be of open heart and to be able to choose to, and to be brought up, if we are to choose to have those experiences, to look through that lens. Like the glass can be half full, not half empty. And definitely I do believe in polarity for sure. Like I believe in light and dark in the world. We can't have one without the other. And whilst there are so many atrocities that happen in the world, and really heavy energy, the opposite of that is true too.
Yeah.
And we have the opportunity to experience both. I mean, even the dark helps us to grow,
Yeah. Yeah.
and can draw us closer to the light, but we absolutely
Yeah.
get to experience the fullness of light. But that does become a choice as well, or the lens that, we want to see things through. So yeah, it is. It's beautiful to have my truths, which help me navigate my human journey and also my spiritual journey, to know what else is out there, to know honestly the love that is there for us at all times. Like even when we feel the loneliest, even being when I see clients and they're sitting in, say, the energy of depression, I can still see their spirit team there with them, trying to hold their hand, trying to put a hand down the cheek of love and support. And that is deeply meaningful.
Deeply.
And sometimes, I've prayed and I've tantrumed even. I wish that other people could see what I see, because
Yes.
then they would know, like I know, when you get it, when you really get to experience it, like when
Yes.
someone really truly gets to feel God,
Yeah.
gets to feel spirit, not just know God and know
Yes.
spirit, like to feel it. That's when the realness comes through there.
That is
And
very
I've
beautiful.
probably gone on loads of tangents. Apologies.
No, I mean, it's a look for someone who hasn't dabbled deeply in it, and or maybe just hasn't actually heard someone who is really connected and has lifted that veil that way. Let's just spell it out. So you basically, when you talk about you can see people's emotions and aura. I don't know
Yeah.
if you use the word aura.
Yeah.
That, for example, do you see a layer of color over people, like like sort of overlaid over people? Is that what you experience, or is it just a feeling?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. We are so multi-layered within our energy. And I definitely cannot see probably even a quarter of it, to be honest, because of the different depths of it. So, but we all obviously have a soul, and our soul is multiple frequencies. Just like you have a thumbprint, which is unique to you, your soul has like an essence and these frequencies that run through it, which is also unique to you. And so when I tune into people, I get to be able to see their soul, which tells me a lot about who they are as a person, their evolution, what they're holding within their energy. From an aura perspective, the aura should look translucent and have vibrancy with colors in it. This is different from the soul, the field of energy around someone. The aura around someone also tells me so much about the person because it's a reflection of what's happening here. So let's say someone's got a virus. I won't see it in the body. I'll see it in the field. Same if someone's got clinical depression. What that looks like is, say, as you can see me here now, imagine a bubble around me, but it's black and it's like the bottom of a well. And I might be sitting here like this, and sometimes they'll have me breathing like the person, and I might not be able to breathe because anxiety and depression go together. So it's like this bubble that the people can't perforate. So life is on the other side of the bubble. So they're in life, but they're not engaged with life. And so I can see that in the field. And so, and then when someone's in that energy and the aura is like this, shut down, their relationship with source, with spirit, with God is really dismantled because, and they deserve that, that's their divinity, but they're not getting like that juice in from the holiness because they're covered in this like depressive energy. So it's things like that that I see. And then you can see also when the higher self energy comes through into the field, the auric field as well. So the field is constantly shifting and changing. And it's really interesting because when people have heavier thoughts, more negative thoughts, the field of energy you can literally see go, and it sits really close to the body. When someone speaks with spirit, and that can just be from their heart, or I say prayer with that, their auric field can be the size of a, 3 basketball courts put together. So our thoughts and positivity and our connection to spirit changes our field and changes our relationship with self and our relationship with others and the world. So it's a big deal with what you can read in energy.
So talking about the black bubble. So what do you do about that? I mean, do you have a mental, and I don't want to be funny, but like, do you have a mental like needle that to pop that bubble, or do you do anything energetically, or do you just know you can evoke positive feelings through talk? Like, how do you actually go there and help these people?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I do really honor a holistic approach. So even though I'm spiritual, I would say to someone like that, hey, I'll help you in my way, but kind of encouraging them to also get like that holistic approach as well.
Yep.
From my lens, a lot of the people that I speak to, I have to be careful of my languaging because it's also not my place to label, but it's obviously important that I'm honest. So some of the people that I see, they won't necessarily know that they are holding that much depression. Like they'll feel it, but it might not have been labeled. So sometimes witnessing where they're at, because sometimes we can't articulate how we're feeling or what we're going through. So because I can see it, even someone being able to go, hey, I have so much compassion for your suffering, not to victimize them, but just to witness them and go, I can see what's happening for you here. Are you feeling like this? Are you feeling like this? Is this what's happening for you? But please let me know if you feel like I'm reading this wrong. Like the power should always be with the person that I'm reading. And so that can be a beautiful start because it helps the person to feel like someone's got me. When someone's feeling like depression, there's such a loneliness and sense of abandonment that can go with that. So then what I can do from my part is I can give them messages from their team, so from their spirit guides, and their spirit guides are different from passed over people, which I can talk about later because that's a bit confusing. Giving them guidance that can be that can help to lift up their spirit, to help with the hope, to help them get insight and foresight and clarity, which gives them the ability to dismantle the energy. I also feel like because of the umbrella that I work in, when I'm having someone with me and they may be going through something like that, it's like they've put their hand up in the classroom of life and gone, hey, can I please get some extra help over here? And when we do that, spirit comes running, like they just love us so much. Like, how can I help? So even if I sit with them, I can also see how their energy is shifting and changing because of the umbrella that we're under, because they've given permission, because they're sitting with me and they know lovingly, affectionately that I sit in the woo, shamanic healing. So if it's appropriate, I'll also get someone on a massage table and do some energy medicine with them to help to recover the soul. But it wouldn't be honest of me to say that that alone is necessarily going to shift everything. It's how can community help with all of this, and how can the person be their own biggest healer? But there's so much that we can shift within the soul, listening to the soul, getting the mind out of the way, because often it's the mind that's incarcerating the soul as well. That can help people to shift and to change and to feel like life can be different for them as well.
You mirror back, in a sense, what you see in them. They feel validated, and then maybe also feel empathy and feel your empathy, and then willing to ask for help or to shift that. Yeah.
Yes, and then again, we can get the messages through from spirit for that,
Yeah.
for this person. Let's say that they're depressed because they've lost a child.
Yeah.
Bless. The child might come through, and then we have mum speaking to the child, which can be heartwarming as well. You know, there's
Big
so
time.
many different trajectories that we can do to help people on this path. Or a grandfather might come through and go, "Hey, this is part of the ancestry." But we can shift this. We can begin to change the cycles coming down your line, you know, for yourself and also for your beautiful babies, for your children too. So there's never, with what I do, it's
Yeah.
so non-rigid. I just have to do a surrender to whatever the person's needs.
Yeah.
Spirit's going to show up in that way, and
Yeah.
I just get to be the messenger and I guess the helper. But it's never me. It's always spirit who helps the person in their spirit as well.
Yes, that makes sense. Now, you were saying you would leave the power with, the person, like your patient, if you want to call them patient.
Yeah.
How does that work with the Irish Catholic woman that you saw that turned out off, what you saw? I mean, did she do that, or did you basically say, do this for me, and it was actually your will? I guess, the bigger question is really this: can someone, like people report voodoo, being something that is done to you without your permission?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, there is like dark magic. There is, in my experience anyway, curses, things like that, heinous things that people can do in a very malicious way to send energy to people who don't deserve it. So there is that happens. In sessions with me, the reason that I like whoever I'm reading for to feel empowered is because even though I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm connected, the person that I'm reading for, like, I honor their spirit, I honor their inner authority, I honor their connection. So just because I'm doing my thing, I never want it to feel like, oh, Nat said, so it's definitely going to be that way. I want them to be able to also follow their own inner compass, So I always offer for my clients, hey, if I say anything to you with any of the channeling and it doesn't feel comfortable to you in your body, or you feel like you want to push against it, please know that it's welcome in the space, because I want people to feel empowered by having a voice, to know that, like, I respect where they're at, because it's the same thing with spirit guides. So we all have spirit guides, and spirit guides will actually never tell, or very, very rarely, like, say, Sebastian, you have to do this. You have to do this. They will not do that. They will say, Sebastian, we've got these doors for you here, and these are the doors, and you get to choose. You get to choose what doors you go through.
Yeah.
And some of the doors may be, put you in a lower vibration. Some might put you in a higher vibration. Some might be full of the lessons. Some will lead you to more happiness in your heart and more meaning, but they'll never force, ever. So I really feel like in my role, helping my clients feel empowered is like, I don't ever force. I'll never say to someone, you have to, you should, you must, because that language does not come from spirit guides. The only time it has is if someone is in danger, like if it's a DV, domestic violence situation. Spirit guides can be very authoritative,
Yeah.
if it's protection for people, but generally they don't go, you have to, you should, you must. They just honor the free will whilst also guiding us at the same time. So I try to do that, which keeps the power with my clients as well.
Right. A list of questions growing
Oh.
with every time you say something. Now, talking about, people who have passed, and the connection that you create. What's the time frame on that? I mean, the way that I, and that's my rational mind, understands this whole way, is that at one stage we move into a body again and we are reborn, right? Well, at least that's how I understand it. Does that mean that talking about a child that you've lost, that now is on the other side, is basically not available anymore, we're busy being alive again? Or is that energy basically continuing to be there and accessible, even though it has reincarnated into a new body, and potentially, what I hear quite often, in the same family?
Yeah, that's a really tricky one to answer. So I'll do my best. And again, I'm not saying this is the truth. This
No,
is
that's
just
your
like
truth,
my
right?
truth. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. I do believe in reincarnation. I do. Most of the work that I've done when it comes to connecting people to their loved ones on the other side, the person has not reincarnated back down
Yeah.
into another form, into another
Mhm.
life. And I've spoken to beautiful souls who have been passed for, 100 years, who
Yeah.
are still up there
Yeah.
and not reincarnated. But to also just throw a spanner in the works with that, it's very interesting because we can be in multiple places at one time. So whilst there's an essence of us here, there's also essence of us obviously in the heavens too. So sometimes I've questioned, and this is something which I haven't come to the conclusion of, when we pass, yes, we're up there, but I
Mm.
wonder if there are parts of us that do actually reincarnate quite soon after death,
Yes.
but we can kind of be here and there at the same time, which is confusing for my humanness. But yeah, it's one of those things I don't know if we can fully know until it's our time to go on to the other side.
Yeah. No, I've been thinking about this concept a lot, and often the conversations that I have with people around that would say, look, you actually, you can't fit all the consciousness you are into a body. So there's always a way bigger part is non-physical. And if you think about a computer, there's only so much that fits on a screen, right? Which might be the 3D part, but there's much more on the memory. There's much more going on behind the scenes that just can't be shown at the same time. I mean, that's my very rational, scientific Sebastian, being born in Germany, thinking about it really technical. But I guess that's my mental construct of like, okay, I see. So there's still part of the energy is just not physical.
Yes, I would agree with that for
Okay.
sure. I would. It's one of those things where it's it's like Alice diving down the rabbit hole, and it's one of those things when you find out something, you just learn that there's so much more to find out. Like it just keeps going and keep going and keep
Yes.
going, and
Yes.
thoughts like that kind of snowball into that, which is awesome. But I don't
Yeah.
know if we ever kind of get, conclusions about it. It just keeps the curiosity alive.
I guess so. Have you ever thought about what the meaning of life is? Since you're going there, I might as well
Yeah, of
go.
course.
Uh,
Yeah. I feel like the meaning of life is one of the meaning of lives. I actually feel like there's a few,
yeah.
to be honest. I feel like one of the meaning of lives is to put our soul expression out to the world. That creates purpose and that creates meaning. So, I'll give you an example of that.
Yep.
So for you and your life, do you love what you do from a work career perspective? Does it feel like it's part of your soul to do the offerings that you do?
Yes.
Right. So that's like purpose for you, right? That comes from your soul.
Hmm.
So you're putting your heart, your love as an
Yeah.
offering to people out there.
Yeah.
So I feel like the more that we can do that, the more that you can do that as a father, the more that I can do that as a mother, that's an expression of my soul, my light
Yeah.
that I'm putting out into the world. So for that, we all have to know who we are and that, know what our truth is in the heart, not of the mind. Put that out to the world. So I think we're here to experience that. I also feel like we are here to learn the lessons, so our soul can evolve, so our soul can graduate. Up there, from my understanding, it's pretty good on the other side.
Sure.
It doesn't have the fear and things that, of course, that we have on this side. So this is a really good learning platform here on Earth. This is where we can grow. Whereas up there, we can still grow and learn, but not at the same rapid speed that we have the privilege of learning here. So I feel like the more we can learn, the more we can evolve. And I feel like with learning and evolving, it's like that really is like, how can we love more? How can we be kinder to ourselves? How can we be kinder to humanity? Like
Yeah.
that's the evolution. That's what I
Yeah.
consider a spiritual person to be, someone who is of heart. So I feel like putting
Astral.
yourself out there, being there for self, being there for others in a non-sacrificial way. I also feel like the meaning of life is to know our own divinity and our own holiness,
Yeah.
because there's so much which tells us that we're not good enough and we're not worthy. And although we will all make mistakes within our humanness, like the truth and the core of our being, that we are reflections of God, like we are that. And when we can come to know that, that's incredible. Also, I feel like living the human experience helps God, source, spirit, whoever your framework is, and the listeners to understand themselves. They understand themselves through our actions as well. So I feel like there's multi layers to like life, which is sometimes really, really, really hard to grasp. And sometimes within our human experience, we make it way more complicated than it has to be. Like
Yeah.
so many people come to me and they're like, Nat, can you just ask my spirit team, what is my purpose? And the truth is that your purpose always resides here. The purpose is always a reflection of who you are, what you love. And that's why purpose is shifting and changing, because as we evolve as people, things that we would have loved to put out to the world 5 years ago may be different to what we put in our purpose now. Whereas being a father to you, strongly assuming that is always going to be of purpose to you. So some things are more
Going for, yes. Yeah.
evolving, or some things are more permanent, but the more
Yeah.
we put that love, that light into the world, the more meaning, and then the more like lessons we get. So in a very convoluted way, that's my answer to a big question. Yeah.
It's not a big question.
I
I
love the
love
big
that.
question, so it's all good.
Well, it's great. And I do have to say, thank you to your husband, because I would just assume that because he probably has a more rational mind coming from England and, like for
Yes.
various reasons, you have found language to bring what you understand probably in quite a spiritual way at times into a framework that people who speak just plain English and have quite a scientific mind can still relate to. I really thank you, because I can follow you, which is awesome.
That's actually such a compliment. Thank you, because I feel like doing this work can be so esoteric and
Yes.
mystical that
Yes.
it can feel unfamiliar to like
Yeah.
the average Joe, let's say. I think framing it in a way that is so grounded
Yeah.
and can meet people is so important to their openness and to their discovery. So thank you for that. And I shall
Yeah.
definitely let my husband know.
Thank him.
He'll listen to this anyway.
So, I mean, to me, like mastery means actually that complex concepts can be put in simple words. And when it comes to the spiritual side, which also has a lot of individual interpretation as part of it, I I feel sometimes sort of like sorry for conversations probably don't go really well, especially when, I don't know, let's say, someone is gifted to see spirit, to have experience and talk to their parents or something, just can't find the words to actually explain to them, hey, we're actually not that different.
Yes.
My experience is not very different. And, I don't judge you anyway. And it's just, this is how, so I guess, having common language is just such a gift, because at that moment you can align with each other and say like, oh, I can now see where you're coming from. Having that common
Yeah.
ground. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I agree. Thank you.
That's great. Now, coming back to something you were talking about earlier, that we are not necessarily, I guess, in control of sort of like what other people put on me. Like, like say the neighbor is really upset with you and, like they wish you really ill. Is there things we can do about that? Like, is that, or do they just like send, I don't want to make fun, but, visualizing it, do they send a black bubble over and it just sort of attaches to us and we have a black bubble, even though we're not consciously or energetically aware of it at all?
That's a really good question. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm really angry with someone, and
Yeah.
then they could even not be with me. I could be in
Okay.
my home and they can be in their home,
Yeah.
and I'm rah about it. I can project little bullets of my anger, of my energy, and it literally looks like little bullets, and that can go towards the person. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually going to affect the person, though, because it depends on their state that they're already in. Let's say this person is feeling solid and grounded and connected within. Those little bullets of projections can literally ricochet off that person's field. I don't see it get sent back like a boomerang. I can just see it like, it doesn't affect me at all. It's like water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
Didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
Whereas if someone's exhausted, if someone's field of energy, so their aura already has tethers or holes in it, if they've already been going through suffering and there's vulnerability there, even they might not consciously know that there's been these bullets sent at them, then that can affect them. Then they're more vulnerable to things like that, which can add to a load on the person's shoulders without them even knowing to. So it actually depends on the person's state with how much that they take on or don't take on unconsciously.
And I guess, you correct me if that's not quite wrong. Right. But like, let's say, if I do 3 all-nighters and my mental state is really compromised because I'm just so tired and so on, that has an energetic impact on my aura and so on, and on my resilience, if you like, as well, right?
Absolutely. It absolutely does. And, coming from that Māori lens,
Yeah.
as your experience within the Māori culture and with mana, have you learnt about mana, Sebastian?
Yeah. Like I can't see it, but I understand mana. I understand the term. Yes.
So if someone's aura is strong, their mana is going to be strong. Their connection to the earth, the connection to the heavens. If you've had the experience that you had all these all-nighters, blah, 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 your mana and your field is going to be weaker. So yes, we're way more vulnerable in that state to just get to pick up what others may be firing at us. So you're right with that.
Yeah. So if someone wants to cultivate this further, and we had a quick chat before we got online, actually, around the Maori culture in particular, and how I always felt it was the first time that I felt home in New Zealand, which was not something I felt in Germany for various reasons. But the way that I experienced New Zealand is really, and especially the Maori culture, I do believe it actually is further now than just, the Maori, like the people that have grown up there and come from England or other places have adopted more and more of that culture too, is that you naturally do certain things. To me, for sure, I would talk to trees I wouldn't have talked to before, or stones, or like nature in general, or just have this gratitude. Like I remember a very common thought that I have had regularly while living there for 12 years is like, if people would know how beautiful this feels to be here, we would be overrun and most of the world would live in New Zealand. That's how, that was my perception of other people would say like, no, that's definitely not me. But overall, I guess, the state that I was in was what you described as like probably a more resilient state because I felt connected to many things. So I guess my practical question for the listeners as well is like, how do we get in touch with that more, and how do we open up to that more? So it's quite a switch between what you call a person of heart. I call it living in my heart or living through my heart versus being quite mind focused, which is a very specific state that to me is more confined.
Yes. I feel like to open up and to be more connected, honestly, it's a willingness, it's an invitation.
Okay.
Because our connection with spirit, our connection with nature is one based on reverence, one based on a relationship. You know how there's been, when land has been taken over through colonization, it's been this focus on ownership of land. Whereas in New Zealand, it was never about ownership of land. They didn't understand that because they were like, ownership? What's ownership of land? This is our friendship with land. So to have that connection, it's forging a relationship with nature, which honestly, people can feel a bit strange, like saying hello to a tree. They don't have to say with their mouth, but, just say through their heart because the energy will convey that. It's doing things like that, even if it feels a little bit strange, doing things like that, which will open them up, which will give that invitation. Like, I would like this friendship. I would like to know you so you can know me. I would like that attunement. So it's a choice to be open-minded or open-hearted, even if the person kind of sits back going, oh, this is a bit strange. It's okay. We just start with these beautiful baby steps. I feel like the more that we can talk to spirit, again, you don't have to speak out loud, but through the heart, walking down the beach, having a chat with God, having a chat with guides, even if you don't hear anything with the water, they're going to hear everything, and that's going to come back and be reciprocated back in the way that they are with you in your life as well. So it's just being open to wanting to know more and curious. That's a beautiful, first step. Which can unlock people too, because they'll never force you to have a connection, but they will always be there like, yes, please, we would love to get to know you. So, and it can literally change our lives as well when we take that invitation and offer that invitation as well.
Sometimes people talk about being able to predict what will happen in the future to people. Do you have a concept of what that is, how real that is, and how that works?
Yeah, so quite often people come to me for that. And honestly, I feel a discomfort with that. And I will say that to my person as well. And the reason for that is that it is possible to see future trajectories for someone. However, as I said before, we have these multiple doors that we can choose at all times. And it depends on the doors that we choose. So it might be that I'm looking at future stuff for you, and that looks the most predictable right now. But if you pivot within yourself, that shifts the timelines all the time. So the reason I hesitate with that is I feel like there can be almost like an illusion with it, like a disingenuousness.
Okay.
And I'm not saying this out of disrespect to anybody who offers this as a service either. But also, I also feel like knowing what is coming up for you can actually be a disservice to you. And that's like, I'll give you an example. I had a lady here with me yesterday, and she wants to know, she's not feeling the area that she lives in. And she would like to know where I see her going to set up her life, her stability in another area. Spirit is going, don't tell her, which doesn't sound very nice. The reason that I could see it, but the reason that it's not my place is because this woman is meant to journey to different places. The different places help her discover more about herself.
Yes.
So if I just said to her, hey, you're heading to, this is me making it up. If you're heading to Melbourne, just go, this is the suburb, blah, blah, blah. that would take her away from the journey that she would go through, when she
Yeah.
visits the northern rivers, when she visits these areas. It's all part of her map. So sometimes, like, I feel like it's not actually within our best interest to know. And with love, that's when spirit's going to draw a curtain across and go, we're not saying, because it's not what's right for you right now. I will never, ever, ever talk about predicted death. Sometimes people come to me and they might have a mother who's sick and they might ask, Nat, can you see from spirit when my mother's going to die? I have a contract with spirit. I'm like, do not show me that information. It's not something that I want to. That's a
Yeah.
big responsibility. That's not something that I even feel like should be held or that I would like to deliver.
Yeah.
So you'll find different readers are more comfortable with offering different things.
Yeah.
So for me, I will do future reads. I don't really like to do it for the reasons that I've said, but I can
Yeah.
also see how sometimes it can be of value to people as well. Again, just for their safety and for their security.
Yeah. If you think about like a sports team and they want to win the championship or whatever, if you would just say, you will win that, the whole experience, the whole journey is gone, right? Because they're like,
exactly,
we don't even show up to the game anymore because we will win anyway, which is like, well, you will not.
Yes.
Because the journey is part of it that shapes you, that gives you insights. It's just, it's part of, like some people call it, that's the deliciousness of life. Yeah.
I totally agree. That's such a beautiful way to explain it. Yes.
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell. Yes.
That's beautiful. So you sometimes say them talking about, and them talking to you. Do you actually hear voices that are not of people that are physically in the room?
Yes. It's a bit of a mixed bag though.
Yeah.
So when I'm with someone and I start to tune in, I close my eyes, and just like you're on a laptop for me here and you're in a screen, I get multiple screens in front of me and I get shown aspects about the person that help them as I get told things. So I literally swivel in my chair a lot as I'm talking to people because it's like I'm having these mini conversations and doing detective work
Yeah.
at the same time. So when I read, it actually takes me quite a long time because I really want to give the right information because with sensitivity, this is someone's life, but I can feel a lot of what they're feeling in the different scenarios. And I can see if they're coming from soul or if they're coming from mind.
Mm.
And so I get all these different images come up, like with a felt sense. And when I'm like, yes, I hear things, but mostly it is through the images that I receive the information. And sometimes I have to sit with the image and really try to work out what they're showing me as well, because it's not always as clear as, sometimes I'm like, what the heck is happening here?
Yeah.
And then it does all come together, but sometimes it's a bit of a confusing. So it's mostly sight for me, but I can hear, but mostly sight.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found that, so beautiful.
Yeah, it really does. Like, it gives insight that can be so deeply meaningful and helpful to people. In the past, I've really struggled with what I do because, the things that we said, it is so lovingly strange. But when I get clients and it just means so much to them of what it can bring to them, that's also why I do what I do, because it does give us insight that is beyond the mind, that deeply help people to change, to heal, to transform, and just to, be compassionate towards themselves and their journey.
Yes. Slightly different topic. I did do some shamanic studies in New Zealand. I remember going to a couple of retreats over the years. Normally it was 108 people, and it was normally 104, 106 women, and couple of guys. And
Yes,
and I know you have two daughters, teenage daughters.
I do.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I was wondering, like, is there something in it that, I guess, from a rational point of view, maybe it's just like females are more connected to their emotions, therefore they're connected closer to spirit, or is it just a random thing and it's not really a given? It just seems to be that way right now.
Honest answer, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I feel that, yes, there's women can often more of heart. That seems like I'm devaluing and being mean to men, which, but
I don't think so.
it is the energy that you read through the heart as well. So, and the intuition is based on your ability to trust yourself as well. So that's sacral chakra thing. So that could be for all genders. The more we can trust ourselves, the more we'll trust spirit and what they bring forward with intuition. But yes, I mentor people in this space, and most of the people that I mentor are women. And even from a client perspective, I would say 80% of my clients are women, and only, of course, 20% are men. Yeah, I would say women are, but maybe that's changing as well, as society changes and
Yes.
men are more invited to,
Yep.
come to the heart, from a cultural
Definitely.
perspective as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Which is like my husband goes to a men's group, and those men there are deeply spiritual. They might not identify as that, but they're coming through their heart. They're learning to drop
Yeah.
down, which is awesome to see. And then they become way more intuitive as well.
Yeah. You're right. That makes sense that it is cultural. If I think about, the Hawaiian culture, the Maori culture, even I think some Asian cultures where men are softer, if you want to call it soft, but like more through the
Yeah,
heart, I guess at that moment they would have access to that too. Yeah. I see
yes,
where you're coming from.
yeah.
So talking about the future, what do you think medicine will look like going forward? Do you think it will sort of become a less important role when it comes to especially mental health and many things really? Because I've had many guests on the podcast, and often there is a clear spiritual, mental reason for why the body is this or that way, which tells me that if you actually start with the spiritual side of things, with the heart side of things, that these problems would not manifest in the body.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. I feel like the future of medicine is going towards frequencies and to help us to heal. So, and what I mean by that, if you think about how Jesus Christ might have healed, it was through frequency, right? If we can come into some sort of even technology, and I don't know if that's possible to be honest, but some way to recreate that frequency or bring that through, we can, because higher frequencies will also attune lower frequencies as well. So I think we are moving towards a medical model, which may be way off in the future, which is more frequency based
Yeah.
healing. I do feel, well, I do know actually that the body holds the emotions, but also the stories of our pain from a spiritual perspective, within. And so spiritual healing can also, somatic healing, spiritual healing can help to lift those emotions, the ancestral trauma out of the body as well, and also out of the mind, because we get thought viruses that infect the mind that can come through lineage as well, which would be the mental health route. So I I feel like healing is going to be so much more energy medicine based, which may look like a clinical energy medicine based or a spiritual energy medicine based, depending again on the person's and their familiarity. But I think that is a model that we're already here, but it's just going to grow more and more because, you know, as you would know, we used to have a top down approach to healing,
Yeah.
mind to heal the body.
Yeah.
Now we've got a bottom up approach to healing, which is heal the body, heal the soul, heal the spirit to help heal the mind, which is in alignment with Kundalini, spiritual, and vagus nerve, clinical, how they come together. So I'm hoping that in the future, the medical model is a union more so between clinical and spiritual, because they're basically the same thing. They're just reframing it in
Yeah.
their own
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it all is important and will grow in its importance as well.
When you talk about the heavens, and you were talking, like I think you mentioned it a couple of times, is that a holding pattern as you understand it? Is it more like that's where quite a part of us just resides, which is a non-physical in whatever frequencies we are, and we sort of visit with part of us? Like, what's your experience of that
Sure.
concept that plays here?
So again, from what I've been told and experienced. So
Yeah.
yeah, if we go back to that kind of tower analogy,
Yeah.
there is heaven, which is like our heaven, our own personal heaven. And I'll make you laugh with this. So I've had gentlemen come through from spirit who have been at the pub in heaven with their mates, right? Because for them, that is belonging, that is their church, that is their place, So I've had other people who are like in a dinghy fishing in a lake. That's their heaven with their loved ones who are passed. So heaven becomes our own version of what heaven is as well. And I do know because I've also had near death, so I've actually been to some areas of it myself as well. There is absolutely no fear. That is absolutely true. So we have this place in heaven that's like a replica of what our heaven would be. And that's when we can meet our loved ones and reunite and all those things. As we go up through the different levels, again, the different levels have different specialities and they actually start losing their earth light reflection. So they'll just become lighter and more frequency based in energy. But I know that from what I've been told by this wonderful woman who comes down to teach, she'll show how we can move and shift time. So she often jokes that she's going on holiday in the heavens. She might go back to the 90s and experience life back then to see what it's like. she goes back through her own photo album when she was a child and able to go back to say when she was 3 years old and re-see that and revisit. So there's places in heaven that we can also play with time as well. And that seems to be the experience that people who have recently passed go through. Like they get excited about the different things that they can journey to. And then it almost seems like we've been there, done that, lose the enthusiasm. And then we can go to like there's areas of heaven that are sometimes described as the sea of souls. It's like when there's that unity, that one consciousness where we're all there together, just united. So souls go there almost like a bath, almost like for a refresher. And we can stay there for as long as we want in that beautiful softness and bliss as well. Some of us on the other side will get jobs too. Some of us will become spirit guides ourselves. Some of us will become messengers for people living here too. So there's so many nuances to that. And I don't think none of the levels up there are bad. They're just all very different. But most really enjoy as they pass over just hanging out and they're in their own heaven with their loved ones. And that honestly looks like so incredible. But yeah, there's all these other places that they can go where spirit guides reside too, up through the tower.
If I think about the Viking culture, for example, I mean, they talk about Valhalla and how they all meet there in their great halls, and with feast and that type of thing. I mean, this is basically what you're saying. Like, if that's their concept of it, that's what it would be.
Yes. And they can do things like she was saying that when her husband sleeps, part of his soul will go visit her. It looked like a level of heaven and it looked like a ballroom. Now, when I say it looked like a ballroom, I couldn't actually see the walls, but I got a sense that there were walls. And when they were in their human, when she was earthside, they used to do this beautiful dancing together. And so at night when he sleeps, the part of his soul visits her up there and she'll show me how they dance together. Yeah. And she's like, there's a place in heaven where she can bring him to and spend time in that dream state. And then also, obviously, he wakes feeling like fresh as a daisy. He might not be conscious through a dream state, of any awareness that happened, but she was laughing, saying that she gets to experience him in that way. And also our loved ones on the other side get to experience us through our joy. So when you're out in your life and you're having a great time with your children, someone from your past who's meaningful to you can feel into your happiness, Sebastian, and it lights them up to feel into your happiness that you're experiencing on earth side as well. So they get to experience life through us in that way, but they don't get to experience when we go through fears. They cannot resonate with that frequency. So yeah, they get the best of both worlds, like quite literally. And what I've also found out is just like we heal on this side, they heal on that side. So I often have people come in and see me and maybe they had a really gnarly relationship with dad, who's now passed. Dad will come through having seen it from, say, their daughter's perspective and all these different perspectives they couldn't see when they're living. And they'll go, hey, look, I'm really sorry. I take accountability. You didn't deserve it. I could see it from your perspective because our healing is their healing and their healing is our healing. So there is accountability on the other side for our humanness as well, but no punishment, but accountability and compassion. And then we have to atone and help people hear who we might have hurt to heal because we're responsible for some of their pain.
That topic to me like blows my mind. I remember talking to more clinical psychologists and he would say, look, sometimes we work with sort of things that happen in a childhood and then we find out it actually goes back. That's a pattern in that family all the way, many generations back. And they work through that and they create a peace around that with the patient. But then for whatever reason, next day, the father of them or even the grandfather sort of says sorry for it or somehow has a reaction that has normally a positive reaction to that healing, which is sort of what you described just in a non-physical way. I found it mind-blowing that there is a really clear connection. And that's the person that I know him really, really well. And he said, it just happened. He can't explain it because he doesn't have the spiritual connection as you have, but it's quite similar.
Yeah. It always, honestly, when I hear stuff like that, it always makes me smile.
Yeah.
Because the more healing, the more apart we can be. So, but yeah, it's a beautiful connection without even knowing how that happens and unfolds. And it really happens all the time, which is awesome.
Yeah. Does people seem to pray in all sorts of religions and all sorts of circumstances? Do you have a particular way of praying that you think is particularly beneficial for people's well-being?
I have a recommendation, and that is I'm not religious, but I do a lot. I do love, like, say, the Serenity Prayer. I also love like Hindu chanting. Like, I kind of take different flavors from different
Yeah.
things when different ways, cultures, people pray. But I always say to people, like, when you pray, just speak from your heart to God, spirit, source, loved ones. And it's a friendship, right? It's a friendship because spirit guides never ever see themselves as being better or more knowledgeable than us. They're
Yeah.
all like, we're all in the same canoe.
Yeah.
This is a relationship. So just like you'd ring your best mate
Yeah.
and you might have a crappy day,
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to unload your crappy day. And
Uh-huh.
you can do that the same with spirit. You can do that the same with, like, say you're angry. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with healthy anger. You can pray, you can speak, pray to spirit, like, with that. And then you can pray when you're happy. It's build a relationship, build a friendship. And people might feel like, well, I don't hear anything back. It feels like I'm talking to myself, but you will get a response. It may just not be in the way that you expect the response to be. It'll be a way that they can step into your life and help you, and you don't even know that they're subtly working in the background because they're listening to your messages. They're listening to your prayers. It's like if you've had a really heavy day and you can feel you're holding dysregulation and heavy energy, you can go to bed that night and just put up a prayer to your spirit saying, hey guys, it's what happened to me during my day. I would really appreciate, as I sleep tonight, you work on my energy. That would be so meaningful to me, myself and my family, so I don't project. Yeah, again, friendship. That's my type of prayer. Like, there isn't this hierarchical, like, you must speak to them this way. And
Yeah.
it surprises people because some spirit guides are very conservative and, like, can be a little bit intimidating, but most of them are hilarious. Like, they are so funny. They love
Yeah.
to love you. They'll play practical jokes. Like,
Yeah.
spirit is hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
so that's why the friendships is there, the banter's there, like the fun is there. Bring that into your prayers for relationship building. And that will also help with your, before you were asking, like, how can people be more open?
Yeah.
Same thing. Speak to spirit through your heart. Like, you could
Yeah.
be hanging out the washing and doing menial tasks and still having a little chit chat, or you could be in meditation. Anything could be a sacred moment of you just, putting your feels out to them.
Yeah. When talking about the different types of spiritual guides or, spirits that there are, you call them guides. You were mentioning angels. I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, you might also be able to talk to animals that might be on the spirit side. What's your take on that? Like, is that just our interpretation of what they look like? Or is it actually just a choice that, look, I want to be an eagle and want to, as a spirit wants to be an eagle and wants to talk to you that way versus I'm an angel and want to talk to you that way.
I love this question. Thank you. So for me, spirit guides do not come in an archetypal form. So what I
Oh,
mean by that is, like, say it's more of an angelic being. Say
yeah,
I've got someone with me and they're quite religious. So they've got an
yeah,
affinity possibly to angels. To them, one of their spirit guides will probably hold a gold or a white gold light. So that's a frequency which usually shows like angelic beings. And to that
yeah,
person, it might come in the archetypal, there's the wings, there's Archangel Michael type energy. Because
right,
what spirit guides would do is they'll fit into our familiarity, again, to
yeah,
keep us safe. But the way that I interpret them is I'll see literal beings of light, often that are androgynous, that don't take on a form that's relatable to any specific religion or faith. Because for me, within my relationship, they don't need to. Whereas if they're coming through for other people, they might come in archangel form. That doesn't mean it's not an Archangel Michael, let's say, but it's because it feels the most nourishing to that person.
yeah,
So spirit guides can come as animals as well. They can come in so many different ways. Sometimes they literally just come as light. That's all they are, is their light. Sometimes they will show up if they did live a life on earth as an earthly form as well. But mostly for me, it's coming as the frequencies that they are, which is helpful because then I can tell what their speciality is, because the way that they glow lets me know, okay, this is this type of guide, this is this type of guide, this is this type of guide that's there to, like, help the person. When I was at school in New Zealand, I'm very, very short sighted. This relates. And so before anyone knew I was short sighted, I used to walk everywhere without my glasses because no one knew I needed glasses. I was wearing them since I was 6. And I would stand there and I would watch the kids walking to school. And then behind the children, I would watch these light beings walk behind them. And I didn't know what angels were. I call them angels sometimes for familiarity.
Yeah.
I'd see them and then I'd be playing. I think I was like playing with the light around the children. Strangely, when I got diagnosed, or I'm sorry, not diagnosed, but with short-sightedness, I had to wear
Yeah.
glasses. I stopped being able to see. So even when I channel now, I take off my glasses to be able to see more. With my glasses on, I can't see anything. That's not what a human would see. So taking on and off the glasses meant that I could see the forms of the angels and the spirit guides. And I still do that to this day. So yeah, they come in lots of different forms if they need to, but sometimes they just come as light as well.
So do we all have a guardian sort of around us, or is it as particular for children that there's a guardian around them?
No, we all do. We all do. I joke with people. I'm like, we've all got ride or die spirit guides. We really do. We've got spirit guides who stay with us for life, possibly lifetimes as well. And then we've got spirit guides who come and go, depending on what we need. And we have spirit guides for everything. Say we're really struggling in business and we need some inspiration, some help with business. We can literally ask to have the help of a spirit guide who specializes in business, which is very human, but they do that, to come and be with us at any particular time to give us insight, to give us downloads. So that particular guide might not be there for the entirety of your life because you simply don't need them to be there. Whereas you have other guides who are like, again, ride or die besties, your family from the spirit perspective, who's just got your back all the time, loving you, helping you, always sitting with you, watching, and just, being that guardian. We absolutely all have them, regardless. And that's one of those things, regardless if we believe in them or not. Sometimes they can't get through to us if we're more of mind, especially unhealthy mind, but regardless, they're always there and they'll never abandon and they will never, ever desert us either.
So it's really up to us.
It's up to us, to invite them in, and they're still helping even when we don't invite them in. But when we invite them in, it's like, yes, it's like they get excited by the task. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. I would love to help you. Like, can you please receive our love? And then they really step into it type thing. So when we ask and give them that, because they respect our free will. And spirit guides are different from passed over loved ones. Spirit guides are full of wisdom. They are full of wisdom. They get a higher perspective. People who are passed over, bless them and their wisdom. But say your Uncle Johnny, which I'm totally making up, say you have got an Uncle Johnny who's passed, and Uncle Johnny was very opinionated when he was living, and then he comes in to have a chat with you, once he's passed. He's still going to be opinionated Uncle Johnny. He's still going to throw stuff at you, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that Uncle Johnny's wisdom is any more wisdomful now that he's passed, even though he gets different insights. He still probably won't have the same level of understanding as a spirit who's evolved and graduated to a spirit guide status. That's like with the evolution of our souls, we can graduate up. Spirit guides have a different way of coming through, and they have a different level of knowledge that they can share with people.
They're not like Uncle Johnny most likely will have another 3D life versus guides that don't reincarnate necessarily?
Not very often. Sometimes I have done readings for people and I've looked at their energy and honestly been blown away where I haven't had the words, and I've been thinking to myself, who are you? Because their energy is so incredibly luminous and literally magnificent. It looks like the most epic sunrise that you've seen in your life. And it's when I see someone like that, I almost feel like I've got to put sunnies on because their energy is so bright. And if I was to say to one of these people, I feel like you're a spirit guide incarnated, they're the most humble people. It's the people who hide in plain sight, who are just, working to really help humanity, but not for ego, not from a rescuer state, but just I want to help. In my life, I've seen people and I've been suspicious. I've been like, spirit guide. So that they come to me because I'm helping them to navigate within their human. But at that beautiful energetic level, I'm going, this person is I'm expecting wings to unfold behind their back, and again, even though I've never actually seen an angel with wings, they probably do exist, but that was just, that saying. But if I remember once I said it to this woman, I'm like, hey, when I'm looking at your energy, I'm blown away. Describe what I'm saying to you now. And she couldn't hold it, which is fine. She doesn't have to be, but she's had so much humility that she was like, oh no, I'm just doing my thing. And I'm like, I love that for you. So I do think there are some people who come into this world who have that insight and have that deeper knowing and are of that heart. But I don't see it very often, to be honest. I see, and that's not a judgment. It's just we're all doing the best on a
Yeah.
human journey. And then you see these amazing people, and it's like literally like incredible light emanating from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Fascinating.
people without ego. Well, we're all going to have ego. It's part of human. And there's an ego which serves as well. Not all the ego is bad, but
Yeah.
these type of people just lead so much through their beautiful heart, like so much kindness. Yeah, and that's what makes them super special, but kind of hiding in plain sight as well. They don't look for like, look at me, look at me, look at me. They just do their thing gently, like behind the scenes, which is pretty awesome as well.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your take on the state of the world at the moment? I mean, to me, I believe I've always been an optimist, and so I seem to not see the bad stuff as much,
Yeah.
Some people would say, things are not so good at the moment. And the reason why that comes up is like, I'm thinking about these people that really want to do good. And like, is it at the moment harder to do good? I don't connect to that, but maybe you have a like wider reading of, the patients that comes through. And, I mean, is it bad to have a bad experience anyway? Because there might be the biggest learning. And that's what I often actually question is like, is good a good thing? Because it means there might be not as much learning versus you have a horrific experience and it really gives you the edge to grow.
Yes, I feel you with that. I feel like sometimes the quotation mark bad experiences,
Yeah.
there can be so much meaning that we derive from those experiences and so much growth as well that can happen. Yeah, it doesn't make those experiences. My take on the state of the world is I do feel like there is almost like an energetic warfare going on, and there is, like I said to you earlier, we have beautiful light energies in the world. And, because there is duality, we have darker energies as well. And sometimes those darker energies, and this isn't to encourage fear or anything like that. This is just, when you see the
Yeah.
polarity going on in life. However, I do strongly feel, and I don't feel like this is blind faith. I feel like I really strongly believe in the light. Like I really strongly believe in the human spirit. I really strongly believe in God, spirit, source, the divinity. So I sometimes overly simplify this almost like a Disney film. In Disney films, you have the good guys and the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
And even the bad guys, like the bad guys, they're just pain and wounded, so they deserve the love as well.
Yeah.
So, but I always feel like good will be always stronger than malicious, darker energies, and that's a truth which isn't me closing off from the horrific things that happen in the world, but choosing to fixate more on the light, which also brings in more light from a faith perspective too. So, whilst I acknowledge what people go through, I also acknowledge that there's so much hope and there's so much change that can happen in the world. And there still is so much love in the world as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. And it's amazing how quickly things can change for a person that might be enraged or that might be really, really wounded. And I guess in your sessions, you see things, flipping quite quickly to the better, if you like. Yeah. If approached right, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we all have different wolves, I would say, within us. We've all got the light wolf and the dark wolf, let's say. We've all got the choice within ourselves. Which part of the self do we come from? And that contributes to our relationship with self, but how we show up in the world as well. Like
Yeah.
if we've been pained and we've been hurt, do we therefore choose to shut down to everyone else and project that pain onto other people to create more pain? Or do we honor that pain and do
Yeah.
we shift to heal it,
Yeah.
and then do we put more light out into the world? So I think we're almost like we're having these internal sort of shifts going on all the time. Which part of myself am I going to choose to live from, to come from? And that's a constant thing, because we could be driving on the road and someone pulls out in front of us and it just like activates all this rah within us. Are we then going to get out of our car and attack that person, or are we going to choose the energy within us, like, hey, maybe that person's having a terrible day, maybe that person is rushing off to the hospital to see mum who just got sick? Like we're
Yeah.
making up stories, but like it can bring us back to like that lighter energy within ourselves. So we have this constant choice of what we contribute to as individuals, but how that affects humanity as well.
Yeah, that concept with the wolves, that's a saying that actually hangs in our office on the wall, and it's from the Cherokee, like from an American Indian tribe, I believe. They first, that story is basically someone being a bit lost and saying like, I don't know, I have all these bad thoughts, I have all these good thoughts, and I don't know who will win. Paraphrasing here, but the end of the story is basically that the wise shaman says like, depends on which wolf you feed, and
Yes.
I think this thing is so true. At the moment where you lose hope, of course that means like if you can't hold up hope, then it would probably go towards like the negative outcome, the negative feeling and so on. Whereas like if you can within yourself evoke, coming through your heart, being an optimistic soul that way, then I guess you have hope that the outcome will be positive too. Right?
Yeah, I feel that. I also feel like we have to have compassion to people's differences because
Oh,
sometimes people have more privilege to hope. Strange thing to say. So
yeah.
I'll quantify
Interesting.
that with saying
Delicious.
some people literally have harder lives than other people.
Yeah.
Some people are born into hardened patterns. And sometimes it annoys me with the whole manifestation culture because I believe we are the great creators and I believe we do manifest. But sometimes hard stuff, bad stuff happens to really good people. And through the lens of human, we can go, that person didn't deserve it. There's no justice in it because there'll be a higher reason from that for a spiritual lens, which
Yeah.
sometimes can seem like bypassing, but there's truth in that too. But sometimes people have to work harder to, it might be if they've experienced trauma, their nervous system will lock down literally from a physiological perspective and they won't be able to access heart and soul. So they have to work harder to do trauma
Yeah.
healing to get them to the white wolf as well, because the dark wolf seems like a default within our own individual journeys. For some of us, it's easier. Some of us, it's harder, depending on how our lives have played out, what ancestry is sitting there for us. There's so many different factors that play into which part of the selves we choose to live from.
Yeah. What's your take on manifestation? To me, that's a mechanism of the world, but you might have a different take or a different way to describe it or explain it.
Yeah, I absolutely do believe in creation of our own life, like manifestation for sure. Although I think that there are shadow sides too that people don't want to look at with that.
Yeah.
But I would never want to take away someone's power and say manifestation, creation doesn't exist. And that's not my belief anyway. But like I said, I feel like we have the power to manifest as humankind, a
Yeah.
totally different reality for everyone. Like, for instance, a book which has really inspired me has been Conversations with God. And in this book, it is explained that, the writer speaks to God and goes, hey, God, if you're so great, how come there's world hunger?
Yeah.
How come all this bad stuff? How come there was Hitler? How come
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah? And the perspective that comes through, which really resonated with me, is that, well, hey, we have God within us. We could make choices within our collective now to end world hunger, like we could, but we
Yeah.
choose not to. So that's still our manifestation. Even Hitler was a manifestation of consciousness. Like it wasn't Hitler on his own. It's what Hitler stood for. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not bypassing here at all, but everything, there's so much that we don't see with this stuff. And there's so much that we don't want to see. Like
Yeah.
we can shift the world. Like if we think about Christmas, right? The amount of that the Western puts into Christmas and that, like, what if we just put a portion of that towards helping economically within the world? But
Yeah.
we're like, yeah, we kind of bury our heads in the sands. And
Yeah.
I'm not pointing fingers. Like I've done this
Oh,
too.
no.
Like this is something that I need to anchor into. It's my medicine. But like, so we can shift and change the world within us. But sometimes we're still waiting for the savior to do it. Whereas if the savior is within us, within our spirit, then we can manifest that now within ourselves and then coming together. Like the power is with us. Again, thank you for holding this. I feel like I've gone on a tangent
No,
with
no,
what I'm
no.
saying.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I think it's powerful and it's great that you speak your truth there, because I think there are some areas that people just don't feel comfortable because it feels a bit like, well, don't judge me for that, or don't make excuses. I mean, mentioning Hitler to start with, like that, like it is really, if you, I love history and going really deep into, I guess, what witnesses would describe in a particular time period, and it blows my mind to actually see that is a manifestation. Like,
Yes.
there's a tide of the time that is, you can just see, like it's not an isolated incident where people say that was the problem. It's like, well, actually, people were just thinking a particular way. Therefore, this is how it played out in the real world, right?
100%. It's a reflection of consciousness. And again, it's a reflection of the wolf that we choose. Like you look at warfare and that's a reflection of the ego, of power and control and dominance.
Yeah.
So we have manifested and created that. Like, of course, not all of us are in that consciousness, but we're all affected by it as
Yeah.
well.
No, very true. Look, you did mention how to sort of get more into your heart space and how to connect with nature and and guides. I just wanted to take it a little bit further to make it sort of, to really open it up to people who feel called to explore this further. So basically what you have said, paraphrasing here, is that, like by practicing the gratitude and coming through your heart by talking to nature, talking to loved ones that have passed, to your guides and so on, that's a really direct way to connect. If people want to go onto this journey, and of course, a really great way to do that would be actually to reach out to you through your website and book an online or in person, if they're in Australia, a consultation. Other small steps that you could imagine, like what could that be? Like, what would be good advice, a good pointer for people? There are many people that really feel that they just don't know where to start. And then they turn sometimes to what's more like a cul-de-sac, meaning like the religious side, which is just that it has its limitation.
Yes. So, like, I feel like it might seem unrelated, but feeling into ourselves and bringing through regulation within ourselves, because there's so much dysregulation within our nervous system that can cut us off from our connection to our spirit and our intuition as well. So if it's someone who wants to go deeper into their spiritual journey and, honor their intuition and trust it more, getting grounded within the self, within the body, which sometimes is going through a healing journey as well, is huge towards opening up more. Because when we're dysregulated, we're more likely to come from that ego space.
Yeah.
And that's the part where we can't connect with spirit through that space. So
Yes.
making sure that we can come into regulation. That's why, a lot of people, when they connect into spirit, they're doing beautiful breath work and they're coming into meditation because the energy is like dropping down and through. So I would say to them, like, get yourself some tools which help you to come into peace and regulation within yourself, and know with that it's different from all of us. Like, for me, I'm really terrible at meditating. And so if I try and sit there and meditate, it's just not going to be a vibe for me. But if I drive to the ocean and walk down the beach, that's my regulation. That's my sense of peace. So I can come back and feel more connected to my own spirit and more connected to spirit, because my energy has dropped in a way which is helping me to be more heart centered and then anchor more into spirituality, helping me to see through that lens, because the lens that we see through from the soul is always going to be a lit lens. The lens that we see through the mind is where we get those distortions, and sometimes we can get that hopelessness as well. So I would say, honestly, regulation is huge towards intuitive development, spiritual development as well.
Would you guide your children, various ages, towards that? Encourage that rather than telling them, better don't tell me what you're seeing, because otherwise you will end up in a institution of some sort. Like, what would be a positive way of encouraging them and explaining to them what they see? Because obviously there would be also people that say, oh, that's not real, you're just making it up, which is actually probably the default. People saying like, oh yeah, that's a fantasy.
Yes, yes, yes. I feel like it's important to witness our children, Sometimes it could be a manifestation of the imagination or subconscious, for sure. But even if it is, and they think they're seeing fairies, because this has a greater effect on their sense of, I feel heard and I feel witnessed. Doesn't mean you have to necessarily believe it, but just sit with your child and let them explain what they are picking up, because that means that they're going to come to you with other things as well, because you've got that open dialogue and relationship with them, even out of the spiritual field. So I feel like it's important not to shut our babies down. I feel like, because that can be disempowering for them, not just in that moment, but for future layers within themselves too. So just hold it, honor it. Doesn't mean you have to anchor into it, but hold it with loving respect for your child, especially if it's fear-based. So especially, if it's coming up, bless our children. There's so many nightmares that, is part of the human experience, unfortunately. And if we just shut down our children with that, and doesn't mean to be up all night with our children, like hold it with loving compassion and lovingly put them back to bed as well. Hold it for them with kindness can make a great difference to how they feel within themselves and their connection with us as parents too, and what they there choose to believe, like the magic within themselves. If we shut them down, we may be bringing them more up to rational mind, which can take some of their innocence away from them too. So I feel like that's actually a really important thing for our children and for us as parents.
Yeah, no, I agree. And being surrounded by that, encouraging that energy for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, let them have the magic, because the magic, it all exists as well. We just get too adult with what we do.
Oh,
So And then we get to feel into the magic of that too, which is awesome for
Quite
us. So
selfish, but that's a good thing. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. My children have been my biggest teachers. Like I just treasure being a parent and what they've kind of brought to me and things.
Yeah. Yeah. I relate to that.
Yeah, it's good.
I've got a couple of quick questions that I normally ask guests on the podcast. You might have heard them before. One is like, what's the best advice that you've ever received? It's quite a mental question, thinking about what we've just talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the best advice, well, something which resonates a lot with me is it's a prayer, but it's actually advice. So it's the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer, as much as I love it, I often forget it. So the Serenity Prayer, I've got written here. It's God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So even though that's a prayer, I really took that on as advice, like how to like live my life, not to get entangled in things that I can't possibly get entangled in. So I really honor that advice slash prayer. It's meaningful to me.
Yeah. Quick comment there. I remember being somehow trapped. Couldn't leave a particular property at night, so I slept in the van that I had at the time, and it just happened that I parked the van next to a really roaring river, which is why I couldn't sort of cross. The river was too high. Creaking sort of branches on top of the van. It was really cold and not comfortable at all. I mean, these types of prayers, and I think I remember the Saint Germain one, which is like before me, like behind me, like surround me one. It did help me because I think I don't remember another time where I was as scared as that. And these things just shift you by
Yes.
just, saying it, but just feeling like actually, and it's like that. And it created really this warmth, and eventually I fell asleep and woke up next morning and felt actually great. But I remember that just before I did that, I felt incredibly scared.
Oh God, I love that. How you anchored into it and just felt into the energy of it and it helped to support you. Yeah.
Good interpretation
Awesome.
there. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, if you could have coffee with anyone, dead or alive, I guess you can anyway.
Oh, oh,
Who
I
would it be?
wish.
Who would it be?
Oh, this God.
Yeah.
I would say Jesus.
Yeah.
I think it would be Christ, to be honest.
Fun. I
Yeah.
mean, if you hold the intention, maybe that energy does come through.
I feel like it does.
Yeah.
I feel like it does. I would want to sit with Christ human. Who was he as a man, who,
Right.
as his personality characteristics? Because we,
Yes.
we see the light of him and his illumination and things, but I want to know like his grit, because I think Christ had like a bit of a bad boy edge, which is a loving bad boy edge, but he was definitely a rebel. Christ, he pushed against society, and that even makes me like him even more. He had courage with that. So like,
Yeah.
I'd want to sit with this human as well.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to know the type of dude that you are. Like,
Yeah.
as well as all the incredible things that you can do with the love and the light that you have of God's Son. But like, let's just have a chat together. I'd just love to like pick Christ's brains. Strange thing to say, but I would.
No, no. My wife's favorite musical is Jesus Christ Superstar. She actually, I
I
think she would love to play actually one of the roles. But yeah, I can certainly. It gives it a different, even just that music. It gives it definitely a different sort of angle that is, definitely more the badass.
Yes. Yeah, like his human, like respect to
Yeah,
his human. Like Christ would have made mistakes as well. And that, he would have, because he had a human aspect to him. Like, and
yeah,
we honor
got it.
that as well.
Yeah,
Helps us to feel safer within the mistakes that we make too.
yeah, so true. What book has had the most profound impact on your life or your spiritual journey?
I honestly feel like it is Conversations with God.
Yeah,
The Conversations with God is, I think, maybe 3 or 4 book series, but
yeah.
it was I read the first book at a pivotal time where I was kind of seeking the answers to the same questions that are thrown down in that book. And it's written in such a humorous way too, that it's easy to read, it's easy to digest. Have you ever read Conversations with God before?
So it's very dear friend of mine, known him all my life. Really, he read it. I did. So short answer, no.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about the content, but when you said it, I thought like, I haven't talked about it for almost 10 years. Like there was a time when he was just so into it that we talked about it. But at the same time, I made a mental note. It's like, it's time to read this. I wasn't quite
Yeah.
sure about it, maybe because I didn't read it myself. It's like, well, where does that come from? Like, does that really give me truth? But by the sounds of it, very impactful for you. I might make a note.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like, different texts are more appropriate to us at other times. Like there's definitely spiritual texts which I know are a great wealth of knowledge that I'm not ready to read yet either. Like I can
Uh-huh.
have them on my bookshelf and I'll pick them up at a certain time.
Yeah.
And now I don't default to conversations with God at all consciously, but I know it sits in the background because it was meaningful to where I was at on my journey at that time. So yeah, and I was kind of in that antagonist state, which the author is in, like, if you're so great, then why? And like, I feel like so many of us have had those questions, like,
Yeah.
and the way that it's answered, I was like, yep, that kind of, that fair, that makes sense. So it dropped in for a different way to me. And it's not an academic text at all. Like it's just like having a conversation, which is how I like to read books as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, that is brilliant.
What's been yours? You've
Look,
probably spoken about it before, but yeah.
I mean, there are many. I do love books a lot, but
Yeah.
to me, the four agreements. Yeah,
Yes.
it's simple.
Yeah.
It's a short book, but there's so much truth in it, and it guides me. Like if I would have 10 amendments, that is quite a list. I don't know if I could work with that, but
Yeah.
it just covers so many aspects of it. Like, do your best means like your best is not the same today than tomorrow. So you don't beat yourself up. That's really great. Speaking your truth, there's so much in there that, yeah, I refer back to that a lot.
That's an awesome text.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would concur with that. That's probably in my top five as well. Love
Okay.
that you've said that. Yeah, it gives us grace. We're human as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's meant so much meaning to so many people around the world, that book.
Yeah, there is one particular passage where they explain what happens when you're sort of shut down by. I think this is like there's a message for parents in there that to me like blew my mind, makes me weep every time, and it is around a child being told off from having an ugly voice and not to sing. Child never sang again. Um, that was said by a really tired parent, and it's said that to the child, but the child took it on and stopped singing ever again. I don't know. It just drives it home. Maybe also because I think everyone has an example of what someone said to yourself that didn't work so well, or, that really shut parts of us down. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
something I think should we have more consciousness around that, what we say to other people. I mean, yeah, have integrity
Yeah.
with the word that way, right? Yeah.
Actually, that exact example that you used,
Yeah.
I saw yesterday with a client. So she finds it very hard to express herself. Like she shuts down. It's a throat thing, but it's a sacral thing.
Yeah.
Shamanic healing is where you track back in time and you find the core wounds which created that shutdown. So sitting in her belly, there's this story of when her father came home from work. She was sitting on the back porch, and I don't think she was singing, but she wanted to have a conversation with her father. And he just had a crappy day and he just shot her down. That small moment experience in her life created such a close for her that feeling was still sitting in her energy and her body, not that she knew consciously. So when you welcome that fragment back to the whole, which is part of shamanic healing, that will start to open herself back up so that she can feel safety in communicating her truth. So
Yeah.
little things like that, which may just seem like a small 30-second dialogue,
Yeah.
can hugely rock our energy. It holds in the body. It can hold in the way that we show up. So yes, we do need to be mindful of what we say and how we say it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Big one.
Yeah.
Lastly, there's one more question. How do you begin your day energetically or spiritually? Do you have a particular pattern there, or you feel into it every day afresh?
I always start with having a chat, spirit to spirit, like a prayer. So there's a beautiful energy. So when we're all just waking up in the morning, but before our feet kind of touch the floor, when we're in that like slower brainwave state, when we're
Yeah.
awake, but we're kind of a little bit fuzzy,
Yeah.
there's a beautiful portal that opens there. And it's at that point I often just sit there. It may be for a few seconds, it may be for a few minutes, and I
Yeah.
just chat away like with gratefulness, but also maybe asking, so for instance, for today, I was sitting there before meeting you in my bed and I'm like, hey, could you please give me loving support? Sometimes I get tongue tied when I get nervous in situations like this. Can you please give me loving support so I can articulate well? So I don't let you down, so I don't let myself down in this dialogue. So in the mornings, I usually have a bit of a chat, which can also be like if I'm holding some pain, like, hey, can you help me with this? And then I usually go outside and say hello to the earth, say hello to the mountains, just, that beautiful, just hi, like I love you, like birds, that sort of thing. And then my day actually carries on quite normally. Like I make myself a coffee, I sit there with my daughter. Before sessions, I do specific things again to make myself to help bring grounding through so I can be there for my clients. But my day starts in a gentle, steady way. I love Hawaiian breath work, so quite often I'll bring that in during the day, which is my connection, but my connection up as well. So it can shift and change day to day, but I usually have slower mornings now that my children are older. But I always start with prayer. Prayer is like the main thing that I always start with in the mornings, which I feel energetically is that invitation and starts to set me up for my day.
Natalie, it was awesome talking to you. Let's just make sure that people know how to find you. Your Natalie is spelled Natalie, and then your last
Yes.
name is Seigne.
Yes.
And you put the .com behind it and we find you.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone who feels called to connect with Natalie, do that. We've just heard sort of like what a loving being you are, and just the way that you operate in the space. You're extremely conscious. I feel really privileged having had this conversation with you. Very, very privileged. It's one of those things that I'm so grateful to be able to do this. I'm so grateful that you made time for this. Yeah, encourage anyone who wants to go further or directly contact her. I think it's definitely worthwhile to have a more fulfilled and happier life.
Thanks.
Any last words, Natalie?
Last words, I would just encourage everyone to be kinder to themselves. We're so harsh on ourselves. We're still trying to hold so many plates and juggle so many things. Like, be compassionate. Be compassionate to your own why. Like, dig deeper, self-reveal. Be curious towards your own actions. Why do I do this? Not with judgment, but with why do I do this? Why do I do that? Be loving to yourself. Be loving to yourself. Again, we can be so overly critical, and that then is projected in the way we treat others. So come home to kindness for the self. My departing words.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. You're very well.
Bless. Thank you so much. I really am so honored to be here, and you are incredibly easy to chat to, which, is fantastic. Great questions as well. Great questions.
Like mine, attract. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You have an amazing day.
You too. Thanks,
Yeah.
Natalie.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.